Alright, let's continue on through the forest. Okay, now I'll stop. Fun fact, they use that exact same sound effect all up until the most recent Pokemon game at the time I'm recording this, Pokemon Sun and Moon. I think it says something about how stupid human beings are that I heard that sound effect in the game and I got nostalgic over that stupid sound effect. Yeah, you wonder why people get overly nostalgic about this generation. It's because we're idiots. And here's a Caterpie. You'll find quite a lot of them. Now, yeah, this is a bug-type Pokemon. I'm not going to use it in this run. It's not a terrible Pokemon in the earlier game. It gets access to some cool stuff. But it's also kind of, well, basically it gets access to these status moves, which are really useful to have, but Bulbasaur also gets them, which is one of the reasons why it's the best starter in this game. Or at least the easiest to use. Bulbasaur gets access to the statuses, kind of rendering Butterfree, or the Stings of all form, somewhat obsolete. Also, the other reason is Bulbasaur is the easiest to train, it evolves the earliest, and it just gets access to a couple of pretty decent moves like Leech Seed, we already have that one. And it's good, or at least decent, against 3/4 of the game's gyms. Which means either it resists a type or it's super effective against it. Or at least, well, it's immune to a certain effect. Which, but I'll talk about that later. So, I should probably, like, I'm debating whether I should cut out random encounters or not, but I probably won't. Because whenever I was first getting on YouTube and getting into Let's Playing, I watched a Let's Player named Slowflake a lot. He's kind of a, he's not a very nice person, but he had made very entertaining videos. And one of his things was he would show every single second of the game and show every single bit of NPC dialogue slow enough so that it can be read. And that sounds really boring, but it worked really well for him because he always had something Pokemon related to ramble on about. He followed the metagame and all like the happenings in the franchise. So he would just go through the whole videos just talking about that, and it never got old. I really enjoyed that guy's videos until he blocked me. Dun dun dun. So actually, I'm gonna tell the story after I get back from Pokemon Center. As I was saying about Slowflake, he really hated the people who go onto videos and post first comment. He just really hated those people, so anytime someone did that, he blocked them. One day, while he was doing Pokemon Emerald, it was in the part where he was in the final city, Pseudopolis City. I saw that he had just uploaded a video and there were no comments on it, and I was thinking, heh, because I'm a clever, cool teenager, I'll make a joke about how stupid first comment people are. Apparently he counted that as leaving a first comment, and I got blocked. You can imagine my crushing defeat. I still watched him for a little while longer, but I eventually kind of lost interest as his Platinum Let's Play went on. Eventually just kind of quit YouTube completely one day. Never finished his White 2 or Black 2, I'm not sure which one he did. I think it was White 2 though. Let's Play. But yeah, there are actually a varying amount of opinions on the first comment people. Pretty much everyone agrees that saying first comment, if you're the first comment, is completely unnecessary and contributes nothing to the video. But my current favorite Let's Player, Picked Up on a Bus, says that he doesn't mind getting the first comments because it shows that someone was really excited to see his video, or that's what it says to him. So he doesn't mind them at all. My name's not Rick! So there's kind of a formula with these Pokemon games, and what Pokemon you find in the early stages of the game. There's always a normal type, which isn't that good. That's Rattata in this game. There's a flying type, which is sometimes pretty good and sometimes isn't. Depends on the generation. Like Pidgey is not very good, but they also have Spearow in this game. Usually there's not a second one. And there's also at least one bug type. In first generation there are 2, but in other games there's 1 bug type. Including in Gen 3 they kind of tried to play up both angles by having a bug type with a split evolution that could become a poison or a flying type. And I'm going to go back to Pokemon Center real quick, because I'm a cheapskate. Anyways, as I was saying, the bug-type Pokemon are usually very bad. I'm trying to think if there's an exception to this. What was the Sun and Moon Pokemon? Like, what was the first one? That was it. No, it wasn't Scatterbug. That was in Gen 6. You can't jam out if you're a Pokemon trainer. And by jam out, he means run away, but I've never heard that slang used before in my life. Maybe it was a 90s thing. I was born in the 90s, but I don't remember anything about it. But I'm still a 90s kid, because 90s kids are cool. 90s kids are cool. Anyways, I'm going to be switching to Bulbasaur here, because this Pokemon Weedle, which is the second bug type obviously, it's more common in Fire Red, whereas Caterpie is more common in LeafGreen. But you can find both in both versions. Weedle has this move Poison Sting, which has a small chance of poisoning the Pokemon, which it hits, excuse me. I just pulled a Marco Rubio and drink a sip of water in the middle of the recording. What was I thinking? Yeah, as indicated by its name, it sometimes poisons you. However, Bulbasaur, despite its very non-indicative appearance, is part poison type. Most grass types in this game are part poison types for some reason. But yeah, that means it's immune to being poisoned, which is very, very useful. And it's why I say it's at least decent against 3/4 of the gyms, because there's one gym which hits it for neutral damage, but that gym's signature move is Toxic, which is it poisons you, but it's even worse than normal poison. It's advanced poison. And having your Star be immune to that is very, very helpful, especially since Bulbasaur is the most bulky of the starters. All the starters are fairly balanced, maybe not Charmander so much. Charmander is much more offensively oriented, but Squirtle and Bulbasaur are both kind of balanced. They are both offensive and defensive, and they're both somewhat slow, but they're not too slow. They're kind of jacks of all trades. But I think Bulbasaur is the more defensive of the two, if nothing else because of its moveset being more inclined for that purpose. It learns like healing moves that aren't rest, for example. And I don't know, they both have fairly decent defensive typings. And just going into a completely different topic. The common trend with all bug-type Pokemon that you find early in the game is that their second form is kind of a cocoon form before their final form being a moth, a bee, or a butterfly, depending on the game. I still can't remember what the normal bug type is for Gen 6 that's bugging me. I know that they included a lot of previous bug types in the game, so they might not have even had one. But I should know this. Alright, oops, I didn't mean to press that. Antidote. Those will heal poison. So, one thing that people don't like, or at least Slowflake didn't, I don't know if most people actually feel this way, but a lot of people who grew up on the original Red and Blue do not like the remakes, Fire Red and LeafGreen. Mainly because according to some people, the game has a weird sound font and all the music sounds kind of odd. It never bothered me, but that might be because I grew up with these games in Ruby and Sapphire. I was a bit behind the curve. So, maybe it just didn't bother me because that's the first one I played. And maybe those other people are blinded by nostalgia. Who knows? I don't know. For a while, Gen 3 was considered the worst of the generations. Although since the people like me who grew up with it are starting to become older, this is no longer the case. I'd say Gen 4 is probably the most unpopular right now. In fact, I would say myself, like a few years ago, that I didn't like it. And now my heart softened up to it a little bit, but I still realize it has its flaws. The main problem with Gen 4, which is Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, is that I would say the plot is nonsensical, but every Pokemon game is pretty much like that. Maybe that one was a little more silly than the rest, but I don't know. It's really not... The first, like, Pokemon games, which had, like, a plot which I consider respectable, well, was the Mystery Dungeon games. As far as main series go, Black and White, though that game's plot had its own problems, they at least tried. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but my main problem with Gen 4 is that it's very slow, and just the game runs very slowly, to the point where grinding in that game is absolutely unbearable to me. And you might not have to grind if you play your cards right? Because that's not a particularly difficult Pokemon game. It's probably middle of the road as far as difficulties go. But I wanted to use a Magic Carp, which meant you have to grind that, and it was absolutely terrible when I tried to play that a few years back. When I tried to replay through it, I've beaten Pearl and Platinum, but I beat it a long time ago. And usually I restart my Pokemon cartridges many times before I get tired of them. But for those games, I imported a ton of Gen 3 stuff through the Pal Park feature, so I didn't want to actually delete my files, because I had all that stuff on it. I'm certainly not going to delete Platinum now. And Pearl's I kind of screwed up with GameShark codes. Sorry. But Platinum, I have a very high-level, like, well-known team, which I dominated everyone with in my freshman year of high school. Maybe I'll tell the stories later. I don't feel like telling them right now. So yeah, something you can exploit a lot if you have any weak Pokemon here is the fact that the evolutions of Caterpie and Weedle, Metapod and Kakuna, if they're caught in the wild, can do absolutely nothing but sit there and harden. Now, Pikachu's an electric type. Electric is what they call a special type, as in physical versus special. Special basically means rather than a actual something like that would normally happen. I don't really know how to explain it, to be honest. I don't really know how to explain the difference, but it's kind of obvious. But special attacks tend to involve Pokemon using like certain powers that they have, such as Pikachu's electricity. And let me like shut up for a little bit and actually like proceed with the fight. Yeah, I completely got sidetracked from what I was originally talking about. But basically, the other reason people don't like Gen 3 is because they went to too great of effort to preserve the original nostalgia of the game. There's not a pixel out of place here. Well, actually there is one, but I'll show that off later. And there's certain Pokemon which got evolutions in later games that you couldn't get in Gen 1, which they specifically prevented from evolving until you beat the game just to preserve that sense of nostalgia, which I agree is pretty stupid. But they learned their lesson for that in their next Pokemon remakes, which is Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So all's well that ends well, I guess. Yeah, those are the main two reasons why people don't like this game very much. It didn't do enough to expand on the original, and some people think the sound font is weird. So you can imagine how little this bothers me, considering I played these games way before I played the originals. Oh, I lost. And this game does have a lot of improvements over the original, but they're improvements which were added in Ruby and Sapphire over to the series as a whole, so that doesn't really count. The PC storage system, for example, how the items are managed is infinitely better. The original games were extremely glitchy, but that's actually more of a good thing than a bad thing, because you won't run into them by accident. Actually, the glitchiness is one of the main draws of the original games in the scheme of the series. There's another main draw of it, which is something I really like about the narration, but that's something that this game also shares, so I will get into that when I get into that. It's not really relevant to the current point in the game.